Well, it didn't piss me off. It didn't disappoint me. And yes, these days I consider that a win. I am talking, of course, about the movie Flight Risk, directed by Mel Gibson, starring Michelle Dockery, Topher Grace, and Mark Wahlberg. This made my list of most anticipated for 2025, and I enjoyed it okay. It's not anything super stellar, super spectacular, like what I felt about Wolfman, but at least I wasn't angry about it, and I didn't feel like I had wasted my time watching it. So I consider that a plus. I'm probably going to give this about a 3.5 on critic list, which means I liked it okay. Nothing super stellar, but nothing craptastically awful like so many films have been. I'll get started off right away with the premise. The trailer does give away way too much. I wish that I had gone into this not knowing much at all or anything about the plot. But I did only find out about it through a trailer. So it's this weird mixed bag thing, with trailers. Sometimes they show way too much. Sometimes they just give you a little tease and you don't even know anything about anything. There's Chibi. That's the way it was with this. I had complained about it showing too much in the trailer during the live stream, and someone pointed out she just got back from the vet, so she's letting out her frustrations, I think. No, she's trying to scrunch the chair like always. Okay, what was I saying? Oh, I had pointed out about the trailer, the issues I had with the trailer, giving away pretty much the entire plot. And someone pointed out, well, it's Mel Gibson, so maybe not. But I'm here to tell you that pretty much the trailer does give away the entire plot. There are other little parts to the story, obviously, that you're not shown, but it's certainly not enough to take the edge off the fact that they have given big reveals in the trailer. I don't know who the heck makes trailers these days. Well, obviously it's multiple people, but I really wish they'd get their act together on this. I am not a fan. Not a fan at all. Anyway, some things I liked about this. The plot was pretty simple. There's a guy, he's going to be a witness against this crime family or mob boss or whatever. And so he has to be protected, and his life is in danger as they are taking this flight to this place where they're going to have this drop off and all this stuff, whatever. So the bulk of the story takes place in this tiny little plane, and it's not like a jet plane. It's a little tiny rickety plane with, just one of those rinky-dink planes that looks scary to fly in. And so if you have a fear of flying, there are parts of this that might make you a little bit nervous. I mean, I certainly felt that way a few times, but it wasn't anything that was super intense. There was not much in here that was super intense as far as eliciting fears of the situation. There were some times where, things would get a little bit shaky while they were flying, but you knew that they weren't going to crash or anything because there was still more story to tell. So there's that, but just the setting, this tiny little plane, and it did a pretty good job of making you feel a little bit claustrophobic because it wasn't like they had many places to go to in this location. They're just in this plane. So I liked that. I really appreciated that the character of Michelle Dockery, she's like a U.S. Marshal. I think she was a Marshal. And I appreciated that they made her limitations and her strengths realistic. So she's a marshal and she's a woman, but she's not some sort of kick-ass woman that can take any guy down. I mean, she gets her ass handed to her. She really does by, one of the characters in there. And the way she's able to, counteract those limitations on her part is she uses tools at her disposal. So I like that they didn't go to the whole girl boss thing with this story. Of course, this was directed by Mel Gibson, so it doesn't surprise me that he didn't go into that territory, which I do appreciate. I can't stand girl bossy characters because most of the time when they're done, they're like Mary Sue's and they're just annoying as hell and boring. So I like that about her character. Topher Grace's character, I would not have known that was Topher Grace. After seeing the trailers, I had no idea that was him until I saw his name like in the cast information when I was preparing my list of most anticipated. He was pretty funny in here. There were moments of comedy, mostly because of him. He had this, just his personality. He was very, very gabby, and just the interaction between his character and hold on a minute. Chibi wants to get back up in my lap. Come here, babe. So, like as I was saying, the interaction between his character and Michelle Dockery's character, there were some humorous moments. I liked it. It wasn't anything that was super cheesy and ridiculous, nothing like that, but it did help a bit to lighten the tension, but I liked the chemistry between them, and I liked the way he played that part. Mark Wahlberg's character, he was the pilot, and he was fine in there. I really don't have any complaints to point out about the acting. Something I completely forgot to mention, but I did want to bring it up, was the issue of Mark Wahlberg's hair, or lack thereof. In all honesty, I thought it was a hairpiece thing, whatever, that had been put on his head for this part, but apparently he really shaved it. I was surprised to find that out, because when it's showing his bald head and he's like scrunching his forehead, I swear to goodness it looked like a fake cap on top of his head, like fake skin. And I was so distracted by that, but it was apparently real. Not really important as far as overall thoughts about the movie as a whole, but it is a bit distracting. It is real. I know why he said he did it, like to get inside the mentality and the personality or whatever of this character, but I don't know. It was super distracting. Okay, back to the video. I did have some issues with continuity or like things that didn't make sense and felt a bit cliche-ish. I will mention some of those, but I will try to be very vague in the way I'm mentioning it. But I'll give you an example. A taser being used and not immediately dropping someone. And mind you, this person is not like high out of his mind on anything like PCP, but that was unrealistic. Another thing, there is a knife that its presence is known. When someone is later in need of a knife, that knife is not utilized. Why? I know why, because it serves a purpose later in the story, but the fact that it wasn't used at that point didn't make any sense to me, because it was known. A character knew it was there. It could have been used and then removed from that location, but because it wasn't, it comes into play later. That sort of thing. And then there was another situation. At the end, there is a thing that happens with a baddie being put in a location to do some harm. While I appreciated the payoff of how this part of the story went, the problem is it wasn't realistic at all. Granted, I know a lot of things in a lot of movies we see aren't realistic, but you do expect some realism when it comes to basic stuff. And where this baddie had put himself, because of the situation and because of everything that was going on, it wouldn't have happened that way, because there would have been someone else would have been in the area to be a foil to this person. I feel like that scene, the issue of that would have been mitigated by showing something else happening right before this scene that we get to. That sounds really muddled, and I apologize, but I don't want to give away things, because I do want you to appreciate it as much as you can without knowing too much. So I'll kind of end my complaints there. There weren't a ton of complaints, honestly, just those little sort of things. It wasn't enough to make me just roll my eyes and throw my hands up and feel like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is getting started off to a terrible year. No, I don't feel that way. I was watching Film Threats live stream earlier today, and Dante and Alan were talking about this movie. And I think at one point they showed a video of Chris given his review too. And I believe one or all of them mentioned something about it feeling like an 80s/90s dumb action thriller, where if you examine things too closely, you know there are little issues with the plot in certain areas, but it's okay because it's fun. It doesn't matter because it's enjoyable. And that's how I felt about this. I agree completely with that. This is kind of like, someone else described it as like a B movie. It's it's not like a super high budget film, I don't think. Chris complained about the visual effects or CGI or whatever. I really didn't notice that too much. In all honesty, that was not anything that stood out to me as problematic. So that was a non-issue, but some of you guys may notice what he's talking about. But you just go in for a fun, enjoyable time. I think you will be happy. You will be satisfied. It's not a long film. It's only about 90 minutes. I do appreciate that. While I don't necessarily mind longer films, I do appreciate that a movie can efficiently tell a story in about an hour and a half. And it ends pretty quickly. There's not a lot of hanging around afterwards. It's just done. Boom, it's over. That's it. So yeah, that's about all I think I have to say for now about Flight Risk. If you guys watch it, if you enjoy it, if you don't, let me know your thoughts about it as far as like the perception of it feeling like one of those 80s and 90s just dumb fun films. I'm curious if other people feel that way as well. Okay, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up and we'll see you in the next video. Later. Baby, baby, baby.